Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Another episode of listener questions. I've accumulated 11 of them. Thank you for that. Thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scout Auctions, Mike's Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, Comcy.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. First question, how many market cycles have I been through in the sports card market? I'm not even sure how to answer that, other than I will say this. There have been some bull markets like we're in now. There have been some bear markets, but mostly it's been pretty steady. Most of the time of my 50 plus years of being in the national hobby has been smooth sailing. And one of the topics that comes up is that when you're in a bull market, that's when the scammers come out. So you're getting a lot more market manipulation, shill bidding, all those kind of things that come up. They are way more prevalent when you're in an up market because they can get away with it. If cards are going down, if cards are staying the same, I don't like cards going down, but if cards stay the same and there's some stability, we've had that, I would say, most of the time in my collecting life. Second question. When you were the boss, when you had a company, is it better to have more employees or less employees? And I always thought it was better to have less. I never really wanted to have to let people go. And so I always thought it'd be better to be lean than to have a surplus. We did try to have some bench strength, especially in the price guide analytical, because that was so important to what we did. But layoffs are no fun. There's obvious business cycles in every business. We had mostly great years, but a few lean years, and we had to deal with it. It's no fun. The other thing, the more employees you have, the more you have to get everybody on the same page. And if I say corporate secrets or things that you'd want to protect with an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, the more people you have, the more difficult it is to keep your trade secrets or the way you do things away from competitors. The transparency sounds great if you're a customer, but if you're the boss, you're trying to protect your intellectual property. The more employees you have, the more people know about some or all of your intellectual property, and that can be an issue. That's why conspiracies usually get found out, because there's too many people to keep a secret if it's a bad secret. It is easier to get things done if you have a lot more employees. I will say that. I had great teammates. Third question about favorite covers from Phil Pierce. Phil, I'm not the guy to ask. We had a very strong art department. We had our editorial guys, our price guide guys. And after the first few years, I kind of let them pick for the most part. Sometimes I'd break a tie, but I thought they did a great job. Anything I'm involved in, I'm looking, is there a way I can improve it? And frankly, I don't know that I could have. They were looking at 1,000 photos and they'd show me the top 10. Well, I'd want to see the other 990. That's really not helpful. Fourth question, again, from Phil. What does it take to say that you're a player collector, that you're a serious player collector? And Phil, I don't think there's a ranking. I'm sure you're in the top 10 for Barry Switzer, and I don't know who the other 9 are. You probably do. I think if you're a serious player collector, then you know who the other player collectors are for your player. I think there is some kind of a registry, but I think that'd be really cool to compile that, to know who the people are that really go after it. But how would you evaluate who's in first place? Is it by completeness or by the total value or the best card or the total number of cards? Does that have to be different or assorted? There's lots of ways to evaluate that. I think if you go around saying you're a player collector, then you ought to have enough stuff. Phil says he's got a few one-of-ones. I think being one-of-ones is cool, but it's just, I don't know that you want people to be disappointed if you said you collected this player and you only had a handful of cards. On the other hand, John Keating, Herb Washington, he's only got one card. Or actually got one card with 3 different ways of expression. So I think you're in the top 10. Am I in the top 10 for Roberto Clemente? I don't know that I am. I might be, but another question from Torsten. Haven't talked to Torsten in a while and I'm overdue, but he was mentioning an episode where we talked about 3 phases of collecting, and that if there's phase 1, 2, and 3, is phase 0 opening packs. To me, the earliest phases are, one, you have to hear about it. The first sense, you hear about cards, whether it's at school or in your friend group, if you're an adult, whatever. And the second thing is, and you see what people are talking about. You have to see it. And then I think you have to touch it. And then after you hear it, see it, touch it, you need to hold on to it and get some and think, how do I want a hobby? And as I've said, there's no really wrong way. Now, if you're given your first card, that's not a bad thing. But a lot of times, if you have no skin in the game, you don't appreciate it. So some of these giveaways don't always work as well as they'd like. Next question, as I've been interviewed on some of these YouTube channels, which I enjoy, I'm pictured, I'm on a camera, and that's okay. I do an audio podcast, but they can see that I have my card wall that's in my background, and it's actually one of the panels of many, but all of the panels for my card wall are in my card room. It just only has 2 windows, and the windows are not facing east or west. The curtains are always pulled, so there's no direct sunlight. There is overhead light, but the cards are somewhat protected, and the light is not super strong. So the comment was about card fade. I'm actually more concerned about autograph fade. I have a lot of autograph cards that are on my wall, and as you've seen from some of those videos, and if they get direct sunlight for sure, or maybe spotlight that's on all the time, and every night I turn the lights out, I'm hoping I don't have a problem. Thank you for your question. Number 7, have you ever been a professional grader? And the answer is no. Now I'm too old. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. I don't think I'm as patient as I used to be. I really have a great attention span, but not for looking at cards that I'm not doing something with. I love to go through monster boxes of dollar box cards, and that's fun because I'm deciding if I want to buy it. But once I have it, I'm not the best guy to figure out, should this go to grading? I'm really good at the ID, but I just like to go fast. That's my exercise. So grading, and I know from having a grading company, you do not want your graders to go too fast or too slow. There's a certain amount of time they need to take to find the flaws, to document the flaws, and that way you're not having it. If you incentivize your graders to go faster, you can train them to go a little bit faster, but you can't require them to go faster if it takes them out of their comfort zone to be thorough in the way they do it. And the slowest guy we had, I maybe told the story before, we made him a kind of a finalizer, because if there was something tricky, he could find it. But he would look for something tricky even when it wasn't there. And that took a long time because it wasn't there. Number 8, what if a player gets an MVP one year? And we're not talking about Judge and Ohtani, who are winning the MVPs in their leagues every year now. But in the old days, somebody would win an MVP. And what card do you want to buy to commemorate that? And I really feel there's no right or wrong answer there. If somebody wins the MVP in 1963, the 63 cards are great. And then the 64 cards that talk about how he won the MVP in 63, I think that's great. So I think it could be either, it could be both, and it's a great way to collect. Next question. When you buy clothes, last year's fashion is discounted. Why can't last year's cards be discounted? Frankly, sometimes they are, but not always, and that's the problem. And so if you're asking, should I wait till next year for the price to come down? Will that work? Yes, it will work if everybody waits. If everybody waits and nobody buys, then you're right. Then it'll be discounted the next year. But collectors don't usually have that much patience or ability to defer the gratification. And I'm acknowledging that 90% of the time, the very early pricing in the year is higher, and then it goes down. But then it catches some kind of level, and there's no sure things. It could go back up, and it could go down. So I can't give you definitive advice there other than last year's fashion is discounted because it's out of favor. Okay. If a card is out of favor, you would expect it to perhaps go down. Next, and I can't remember who wrote this, but was asking about the American Card Catalog, Jefferson Burdick's great work, and how he had American Card Catalog designations with R and E and W and all those kind of things. He did not have an N. But in the early days of the price guide, he had the number sign. It was just the number for any 19th century. N stands for number, N stands for 19th. And it avoided, in my case, when I was getting more into digital presentation of the data, avoiding the special character of the number sign, the hash. That stuck more than the number sign N302 instead of number sign 302 for Mayo, football, and all the others that are great sets. Lastly, from IndyCar Cards, about how dealers should interact with collectors that are showing up at a show. And he's perhaps a little bit like me, friendly introvert, and you're walking around and then somebody says, hey, how's it going? And they insist on having a conversation. The comment here is that if you're a dealer, be friendly, but you can't force a conversation. Hey, what are you looking for? I'm not looking for anything. I'll know it when I see it. And that just sounds like I'm being dismissive. And that may be what this friend is saying. And he says he doesn't find what he's looking for. If it was something that would be out there, he could be the guy that is looking for 48 leaf, 49 leaf baseball cards. And you could go around and say, that's what I'm looking for. I'll be around at the next show. That's a good way to do it. But I don't know that you always want to tell the dealers what you're looking for. Sometimes it backfires because they say, well, I'll get some. And then I know since you want them so bad, I can price them with a hefty price. He says finally that if it's unpriced, not only is he less likely to ask about it, even if he wants it, it then becomes, and this is a point I hadn't thought about, is it becomes more of an impulse buy. In other words, you see a card, you like the card, you start getting emotional. Hey, I'd like to buy that. There's no price on it. And so then it becomes, you're like caught. And then somebody says it's $5 or it's $500 or it's $5,000. And you're caught now, pulled into thinking I was going to get that card, but I sure wasn't thinking it was that expensive. And it really shouldn't be that expensive. Or I think comps, or last time I checked, it was a lot lower. On the other hand, they are the seller. The cards are not going to get sold unless the seller puts a price out there that you can agree with. And if the seller won't budge, then you're going to go home empty-handed. Now, there's lots of stories. You come back the next show and say, hey, I noticed you got the same card there. Don't rub it in, but just say, I'm still interested, but this is the price I was interested in. Let me know if we get to that. Or here's some trade material I brought because I noticed you had some of that stuff. Again, this is somebody I know that is friendly, but like me, they don't want to have a 30-minute conversation about one card. They want to see if they can make a deal. They want to be pleasant about it. But if it's priced, you can just say, hey, here's what I'm offering. No offense. At any rate, that's it for another 11 questions. Thank you, everybody. Keep sending your questions. It's drjamesbeckett@gmail.com. That's a good way. Or see me at one of the shows. I hit all the Dallas card shows as well as the national. Don't mind being interrupted. A lot of times I'm in a chair, so I'm in a comfortable position and I'm zipping through cards, and it's easy to take a quick break and say hi and answer questions. So enjoy the hobby. I've got another episode coming about different ways to buy, different ways to sell, lots of different topics that have been suggested. They're going to be fun to deal with. Again, thanks everybody, and enjoy the hobby, and I will be back in a couple of days.
The man in the house of cards is doing all right.